Welcome to The Principle, brought to you by Jakin Human Capital, your partner in human resource development. In the beginning, God spoke everything we see into being. Then God created after his spoken word. Why is speaking so important? Speaking helps us communicate what is on our minds and in our heart. When a child cries, he or she is speaking to the mother and saying, I need something, or I'm unhappy about something. In Genesis chapter 1 and verse 3, God said, and it was, and then he divided. In verse 6, God said, and in verse 7, he made and divided. In verse 14, God said. Verse 16, God made. In verse 20, God said. In verse 21, so God created. In verse 24, God said. And in verse 25, God made. Finally, in verse 26, God said, let us. And in verse 27, then God created man and then blessed them and said. In verse 31, it is written, and he saw everything he had made was good. Take note that God was speaking to himself. There was no one to speak to but himself. In verse 26, he brings in the Holy Spirit and the Son and says, let us. Why would God speak and no one is listening? As a man speaks, so is he. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Very profound saying, finding their root in the Bible. Simply, there is power in the spoken word. What one says defines the kind of thoughts one has and comes from the heart. God visualized in his mind and in his heart an earth full of his glory. Then he spoke it in faith as he visualized it in his mind and as his heart desired. He gave life to his vision by speaking it aloud, and indeed it became. Why speak? Number 1, you speak to give life to your desires, your visions, your dreams. God visualized, pictured an earth full of himself, and so he spoke it into being. Speaking out what you deeply desire gives life to your vision and your dream and your desires. Number 2, you do not speak what you desire or dream or visualize so that people may hear you. You speak so that your spirit can hear you and bring to life what is within you. God spoke to himself. Only he knew what was deeply rooted in his heart and in his spirit, who was hovering over the earth, heard and stirred him into action. My tongue is a pen of a ready writer. The tongue only speaks what the owner wants it to speak. What is in the heart and mind of the owner? God, stirred by his spirit, the power of his work working within him, actioned on his spoken word. He divided, he made, he created in accordance to what he had said. A point to note, it took 6 days for God to get the work done. The work of creating, making, dividing, planting, molding, placing, channeling, smoothing, carving, paneling, you name it. It took creative thinking, patience, adrenaline, tenderness, faith, mastery, skill, precision, etc. Each day he said, and on the same day he worked on what he had said, day or night. And at the end of each day, he had completed a new task, and so it was good. He did not procrastinate or put it for the next day. When you look at earth, what do you see? Two things. Number one, nature and man. This is the creative power of God, the handiwork of God by his spoken word and creative power. Number two, things created by men, the handiwork of men by their spoken word and creative power. And yet, when we look at the handiwork of God and what he has made, what man has made is nothing in comparison. Speaking is not magical, not just speak and expect magic to happen like we see it in the cartoon world. The reason many do not achieve their dreams, many are busy speaking about everything else except their dreams, their visions. They are speaking about politics, their favorite superstar, and whatever else. Many are speaking other people's dreams and visions. Many also speak, but never get to work on what their spirit is stirring them to. The results? No results. Now, if it took speak and action for God to get it done, what makes you think it will only take speak to get it done? What is the principle? You speak as an expression of what is in your mind and in your heart. Then your spirit captures what he or she has had and propels you or inspires you or pushes you into action. This is what brings you the desired result. Speak out. Give your dreams, your visions, your ambitions, your plans, life through your spoken word. Then, as your spirit is stirred up within you, action on your spoken word. Get your hands dirty with the work. You will see the results you desire.